Hold on. Joe's here, stepping up to the mic.
Can I ask you a question quick?
Yes, sir.
This, I maybe it was in the minutes, that letter to the fellow down on Pioneer Street who wanted to deal with this flooding around the sewer pipe.
McNeely, this one right here.
Right, and so Cindy drafted up a letter and asked me to look at it, and
Oh, did she? Okay.
And
Because
so-
Bertine and I just were talking about that. I didn't quite know what the village's response was. And he was
so I think she was just gonna, she took my comments and was gonna send it out, but I haven't seen since our board meeting, or didn't have a board meeting. I don't know if,
I can certainly check.
Yeah, thank
okay.
We got less stuff at home. Wait. Let me see if I can.
Okay. Hey, Paul. Okay, I'm gonna just mute it for the last 2 minutes then. Hey, everybody make your
Paul,
microphones.
are you unmuted? Paul, are you unmuted? And Bill?
I'm still deaf.
Well, we can certainly hear you though, just to be clear. Okay, I think we'll call the meeting to order. We have online who? Jim, Bonnie?
Yep, Jim and Bonnie.
Okay, you let us know if others come online. will you?
Yep, definitely.
Welcome, everyone. The first component are the minutes of 2/18. Do I have a move?
I think there's an error in that
Okay,
page 2.
okay,
About 2/3 of the way down, it says preparation for writing and managing grants will not be paid by those requesting the grant, but rather by the money from the grants.
right.
I didn't think that was,
No, it is. I think I wrote back to, Amy is putting in a grant to pay for, money to pay for grant writing. That's what she's putting in grant in for.
Right, and I think
okay,
Yeah.
that specifically, but not any grant is not gonna ask for the money back for them writing the grant that they're sending in. That's
I'm
what,
only talking about the grant she's submitting. That's all I'm talking about. Is the grant that she is submitting.
okay.
That's what it should be. Tell me, read it. Can you just remind me, Bill? Can you read it? If we're here, and I can read it myself. Hi.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Lori.
I just took it that meant to be a,
Amy wanted to provide an update on a grant she has filed to cover the cost of writing and administrative assistance. This would not be paid by the one requesting the grant, but rather by the money from these grants. That's what she said. That's what we asked her.
from that grant, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And we change it to this grant. Plural is what's confusing.
Okay.
yeah.
No, because she said, if I write a grant for you, I'm gonna be paid from the money
In the grants. Okay, that's
No,
what's
then
still not
the-
clear.
in this grant that she's writing. You know
Well,
what?
then it was this grant, yeah, the
Let me-
one she's writing right now.
Let me clarify and come back, okay?
Okay.
We can hold these.
Yeah, we should,
Don't stop it.
well, I'm on hold, but I'll, we can, why don't we?
Subject to that further edit,
Sure.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, if we're gonna edit, if it's pertaining to that one grant, that's fine.
Well, I'll make the motion, someone else can second it.
Okay, go ahead. Okay,
Thank you, Bonnie.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Okay, wonderful. Gloria just came in, so that's good.
Thank you. And Pat Kennedy has joined us now.
Oh, hi, Pat. Great. All right, so I wanted to try and do a couple of business items in the beginning. Separately, I sent to you a request from Springfield, specifically from the town supervisor there, to write a letter of support for their request to the Lake Fund for money to support their grant, the match for their grant for the salt shed. You may recall that last year, the community foundation wrote into the requirements that WSC must approve anything that was applied for the lake, for the lake fund. It has to come to WSC for approval before it goes to the lake fund. That was added last year. So, what you have on email is a letter that somebody wrote that Galen signed, outlining the reason why they're requesting matching funds for the salt shed. It's for $20,000. We don't decide money, we just decide whether it is a request that would be within the 9E acceptable grouping and whether we want to support it. And we don't have to do it today, we have until April. If you want to think about it, or maybe you didn't read it yet. But we do have to approve it in order for it to go in, and it's from the town of Springfield, well written, the document's well written and sent. Conversation?
What is the perceived issue with our not going ahead and so that's supporting the formally?
We don't know.
We're not going to be appropriating any money or asking them any of our entities to approve it.
No, all we're doing is reviewing the request, seeing if it meets sort of things that would be included in a 90 agreement. That would help the 90 agreement, and then saying to the lake fund, we looked at it. We read it, we think this is an entity that will qualify to request money. This project will qualify.
Well, with whom was I speaking recently that we're talking about the absence of a salt shed can result in a 30%?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've talked to Deal and Henry Miller about this a bit. Right now, the position that was chosen to store sand and salt is about 20 feet from a spring that is now covered underground and it carries out underneath Route 80. It's right on Route 80, right where it goes down the hill towards Continental Road. Yeah, and they get about 3,000 tons a year of salt, and they get about 5,000 tons from the county to do county roads. So they have two separate storages there, but they're both sitting on dirt. So there's nothing to keep, and they're not really covered with anything all that protective. So the snow and rain is just going to dribble through the salt and push it into the ground right there. And there is a tributary starting not very far from there that's going to go into Shadowbrook. So I think, and even if they pick that entire business up and move it back about 80 or 90 feet, I forget, but it's far enough in a way that it would be 100 feet from a tributary. That it's still going to be some salt in the ground for a long time that's going to get rained on, and I don't think there's anything you can do about that. But you'd certainly like to see that stopped. And the plan that I saw, I heard them talk about, and Christos was the lead for that meeting as well, is that there needs to be a floor that is impermeable so that melted salt or where it's become mixed with the water isn't going to get into the ground and get lost. It also apparently the estimates that I had heard was that they may lose as much as 30% of the salt a year in letting it just sit out where Mother Nature can have her way with it.
So recall that the grant that the Soil and Water put in was approved for the salt shed. We're now talking about dollars that Springfield, the town of Springfield needs to match. So they need to match a lot more than what they're requesting from the lake fund. And I doubt the lake fund will say, yes, we'll give you all of this. Yes.
Unless the amount that is finally billed to that salt shed is higher than the awarded amount, or at least higher than the awarded amount plus 25% of that awarded amount, which their awarded amount was 575,000, and what is 25% of that, like what, 145, 142?
No, 143, 750.
Yeah, so that means that it should be, it should reach like around 7, so that means that the total amount for that would have been about 700 something thousand.
Yeah.
That's just quick maths right there. But if it goes above that amount, any additional amount will have to be pocketed out of the town's coffers. That being said and done, anything below that amount, however, all that the DC asks is for the town of Springfield to contribute 25% of said costs. And part of that can be offset if the highway department chooses to in-kind some of that labor.
So this is money for the, go ahead, Bonnie.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Christos, in the typical grant, do they provide a barrier floor and a protective top so that there isn't as much erosion or depletion of the salt storage?
Define provide, like,
Is it in the grant? It's the, whatever we're building has all the the requisite important components to it, like the floor and the whole thing, right?
well, the idea for the DEC to fund the salt shed is that it captures all those salt runoff, so.
Right,
Building a shed that doesn't do that is frankly a self-defeating purpose.
right.
That being said and done, outside of the environmental concerns, and I know that me and Galen have had intensive conversations on that. Any salt shed that is constructed needs to be done under, what is it, OGS, OGS specs.
Yeah.
And any contractor that needs to do it can find those easily.
Right, so the only topic here is not about how the salt shed is gonna be built. The thing that we're talking about now is, are we comfortable supporting their request for the lake fund, not the amount, but the actual effort itself? That's the only thing that's here. Now, if you want more time to read the letter that was sent to you, you can do that. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to know that Jeff Katz is also on. He has his
Okay.
hand up. So maybe we'll do Jeff and then Pat and then Bonnie, if that works for you, for King.
Sure.
Jeff?
I have a virtual hand up and Bonnie and Pat have a real hand up. So technology rules. I just want to make clear that what the question says is that Watershed has reviewed this
Right,
to make sure it's in line with the 90 plan. I would not put any words in that say we support this. That's not the role. The role is saying, yes, this fits the 90 plan. Proceed. The advisory committee will then review and make a recommendation to the proper body at CFOC to give final approval for the recommendation. But I just want to make sure we're all
Yeah.
thinking review as opposed to support. Those are
Right.
two different things.
great point by you. Thank you, Jeff.
I-
Remember that the review body is me, Florian, and Jim Howard. And Jeff sits with us. That's a review body that it goes.
That's the advisory committee that reads the grants and makes recommendations.
It does fit in with the 90 plan, but the 90 plan is not the only effort that is made about the lakes. About the lake. And if we were not writing a 90 plan, I would still see it as our role to support something like this that has such an ecological potential benefit for the community and the lake.
Let's get the people with their hands up. Pat?
We can't hear you, Pat. I think you're still muted.
Unmute.
There you go. Yeah, we got you now.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, for 3 years, 3 years that I've been on the board, we've been talking about keeping salt out of the lake
Mhm.
and the tributaries.
Mhm.
And we've wanted people to go to conferences and we wanted them to pay attention to that. And we want the municipalities to feel like they are being supported. And Galen hopped to and worked with Christos and got a salt shed, which was one of the things that would be on the list to do that. And if this committee doesn't say, hey, good, you did what we asked you to do, that would be really bad PR. I mean, it'd be like, we asked them to do things and then we didn't support them when they did it.
Yeah, Pat, I don't hear anybody not supporting it. It's just a matter of, have you guys had enough time to read the document that was sent? Are you comfortable voting? Do you need more time?
I would just say, unless Bonnie had something else to say, then.
Oh, sorry, Bonnie?
I was, on this review versus support. I certainly would say, yes, we've reviewed it, yes, we agree it meets the criteria of the 90 plan. But I wanted to harken back to Bill's comment that it was located too close to a tributary. So
can we have a review with a contingency that if it's moved to a safer distance from the tributary, then when, or is that for the community foundation to make a substantive?
That's for the,
On.
that's for the grant that Soil and Water submitted to determine where it goes, and they'll make sure that it's in the right spot. Yeah,
You're real estate constrained, right? That's.
Well, yes, I mean,
Right.
the second map that's that's attached to the letter shows you that it's at the upper end of the property that is owned by the town. I don't know if the town has any other properties that would be possible, but I don't believe so. It also is going to be moved back a considerable distance to a place that will have an impermeable floor, so it shouldn't be leaking into the ground there anyway. I mean, I'm sure there's always going to be some spillage, and there's, you know, the trucks going in and out and all the rest of that. And it's not perfect, but I think they made as much of an improvement as possible with what they've got. And that seemed to me to be a reasonable effort.
okay.
Yeah, I
And
think-
in terms of, I think in terms of salt shed, we gotta leave that part alone. That's not for us to figure out. Christos is on it, Galen is on it. I think we've gotta just, whether we are comfortable saying we have reviewed, and it does seem to meet the, a link with a 90. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just gonna say, this is a best management practice for salt storage.
Okay, correct.
And that's what we're about identifying, so, I mean, I feel quite comfortable in making that technical determination and passing that on to the grant.
All right, so I will move approval. Do I have a second?
You do.
All in favor? Any members opposed? All right, the motion carries. Great, this is our,
Can I make a comment?
yeah,
Real quick, two things. One is, I think we're maybe forgetting where the salt is going. You know, we're concerned about leaching. All of this salt is being put on roads, a lot of it right in the watershed, right? Thousands of tons are washing into the lake, you know. So I guess to that's point, anything we can do to reduce it, but you know, most of the salt or a huge amount's gonna end up in the lake anyway. The other
absolutely.
thing is,
Totally agree.
you know, I hear what Jeff is saying, but you know, we still have freedom of speech here. If we want to add a comment onto the official, you know, function of the group, I don't think there's anything wrong with expressing the committee's opinion attached to, you know, the motion you just passed. It's up to the, you know, up to your group, but you know, I think
does-
it's perfectly free, you're free to make a comment.
Yeah, does the membership want to add anything other than what I just said?
Well, something like, you know, salt management is a very important part of
That's
Lake
already in the
Watershed.
letter. It's
Yeah,
already in the letter Bill wrote.
okay.
I think we should stay in our lane. We were asked to make a technical review and that's what we can do. And I would say, Jim, the thing about having a salt shed, yes, every grain will make its way to the lake sometime or other, but we're talking about reducing the amount of salt basically by 30%. That goes into the lake because we have a salt shed.
And what we have here is a pretty darn good plan and we're ready to implement it. And that beats the crap out of a perfect plan delaying.
That's right.
So I would say, yay, this was a milestone moment for WSC. We're supporting a town's request to secure potential funding. So I think that's part of our job. Well done, well done. Okay, I wanted to let everyone know I've talked to the Cooperstown Country Club. We're not yet on the agenda, unbelievably enough. And sent them a lot of information. I've asked them to be more involved than they have so far. Have a lot of people with boats. They have a lot of access issues with the lake. And Chris Hultz, who's the president, is going to get back with me. I've sent him all the information. I think they need to be at least engaged as we go forward. So I'll try and enhance that. Let's see. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, follow up plows. Okay, but there was a lot of conversation about plows at the last meeting. what do we know for a fact about the plows that were mentioned? What were they called?
I can tell you that
Private.
the town of Springfield already has a couple of those.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many, but that, we talked about that briefly at the meeting when we were talking about the shed. I could find out more about that, but.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure exactly how they, where they send them, those in particular, or what, but, I can find out more about that.
yeah, I'd be very curious to see like boots on the ground, what their actual experience has been. Have they had them for a year, a couple? You think?
I don't know, we didn't get
That's okay.
into
That's
more
what
of that,
I'm
but
just curious. Yeah.
There was a salt training this month, I believe. And I'm told that we also have one, but the trick is you can't use them on every type of road. You got a dirt road, it's not necessarily, the condition of the road makes a difference, what kind of plow you can put on it. So it's a call by how much snow there is and what kind of road you're on. And so it could be that what Bill's talking about is they've got them, but they might not be able to use them under all conditions and all roads.
Right.
The good thing is that they don't use salt generally on roads that aren't paved anyway.
Yeah,
So, there's a little bit of
Yeah,
now,
back
more,
and forth.
is there, go ahead.
no, that was the point I was gonna make.
Okay,
We don't solve unpaved roads.
right. So, do we have more to do on this, or do we want to move on from this? Do we want to put this on a list of things we should pay attention to in the 9E?
Yes,
Yes. Not for now, for later.
certainly not a high priority,
Yeah.
but something on the list.
Okay, thank you. All right, for the next grouping, actually, Jacob and I had a conversation today. If we want to get something into the 9E plan so that it's there in case we want to write a grant about it or in case we want to develop a BMP, et cetera, or just because we want a comprehensive plan, then we'll need to have some sort of write-up that has, the scientist, either BFS, Jacob, Kyoko, someone look at it, even the scientific team, I guess, so that it can go in the 9E. And so these are the things we've talked about, which I want to make sure we want in the 9E, and then who's going to take responsibility for writing it up so that it's included in there. And it has to be obviously a scientific review before it goes in. So do we want to go down through this and see what folks think? So Willowbrook,
That should be Christos,
Yes,
because you're doing the research on what's been done at Willowbrook.
yes.
Christos.
And I don't think Willowbrook should be separated from Clark Pond. They're too similar and
Okay.
Yeah, well, I was
And their
gonna say, I'd be
impacts on
happy,
their
I'd be happy to do whatever I can. It's a tributary, it's on
yeah,
our list of things to be looking at, and it is an interesting phenomenon, in part because it's probably the only one we have that really has a lot of people living around it for a long stretch, and it also has an object just a little bit further uphill from it that doesn't exist anywhere else that I'm aware of. So it's a unique
that's a lot.
place, but it gets a lot of stuff coming out of it. So
And it has a lot in common with Willowbrook in regard to the fact that there are people that are living around it. It's on private property. It's a sump for the
Yeah.
silt.
So Christos, Willowbrook and Clark Pond, I guess, and Bill's happy to write something up and you can
yeah, I can
assess.
be glad to help with both of those.
I'll
And
see what I can find with Willowbrook. Yes, we talked about this in the last meeting.
yes, we did. Okay, what about the water pipe issue?
so we have a write-up of that already from Matt, and I passed that along.
Yeah, all right, Matthew wrote that. Catch basins?
And what specifically about them, I mean, catch basins are a best management practice. The question is, where do you put them?
Right.
And so I don't know what to say about that.
Well, I think that I've pushed for catch basins along Route 80. Last 15 years, DOT hasn't put the first one in, so. We have one at the bottom of the hill at 5 Mile Point. That was installed on the, not the stream side, the other side, with OLA funds about 10 years ago. I have no idea if anybody's attending to it. I haven't seen any sign of it recently.
Yeah, the issue here is if we want it in the 90, we're gonna have to take responsibility for putting in the 90 what we think needs to be attended to here.
Well, given the fact that we keep talking about mud plumes going into the lake, the simplest way to get rid of them is to put catch basins in and have somebody attend to them, so. As far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer.
Who wants to write it up? That's the question.
So perhaps what we have here amongst all these things, we get all this information compiled, then I can talk to Wendy about the inclusion of it. I already talked to her this last week. I thought we had a lot of good feedback in the last advisory leadership meeting about the road washing out and sort of the sedimentation issue we had just have along the roadways. So anything along these lines, I sort of encouraged her to begin to write up what her thoughts were based on that meeting and the input that we had from people. And then I'm gonna try to get that back to you all, particularly those who are gonna be offering some feedback. So if you have anything now or coming up soon that you want to give me that covers those topics, I can get that to her. But I thought there was probably enough novel stuff that might be included in that part that she may not know of, not being a resident really, and just has sort of having sort of the random sort of stuff that she gets in the input and meetings and so forth. So maybe that's a way to facilitate it. Start getting stuff to me about that sort of stuff, and then I'll make sure that she has that. And then once we have a draft of that sort of subsection of the reports, I can try to also get that back so we can get some feedback without it being sort of, here's the whole report, review the whole report and stuff.
So that would be applicable to the invasive mussels, culvert assessment. So those two would end up being part of that grouping that we're gonna get to Jacob and his.
And I've gotten some good feedback on sort of the ways that we should include talking about the mussels in the report with the folks at BFS. So I'll continue to talk to them about that, make sure we have that well incorporated as well.
BMP list, I was gonna set up a meeting. It's in the minutes of people who, because we have scattered, we don't have a really complete list. Folks in here were to let me know who should be at the meeting. Can you get back to me? Tell me.
I want to be there.
You people, oh, you'll be there. But who else should be here? So should someone from Soil and Water be there? Should someone from BFS be there? Who should be there? Just tell me and I'll pull it together. Paul, okay?
So the only thing to note, and I'd be happy if Kyoko has any thoughts on the same thing too, from the conversations that I've had with the contractors, and there was a bit of a discussion with it today during the modeling meeting. My understanding is what Wendy has outlined is that there'll initially be a meeting once they have sort of their climate assumptions of the model, once they have that facet of things worked out, that they then want to meet mostly with the DEC to make sure that they're on board with the approach and sort of the basic assumptions they have in the model. Then she wanted a sort of ag focused meeting, which I think we can include anybody who wants to be included, but her main priority is soil and water, and possibly Herkimer soil and water if they're willing to join us. And then a similar meeting that had to do with septics. And then I think the thought is from that, hopefully then there is sort of a framework of potential BMPs that we can consider in the model.
No, we need roadway ones too.
Yes, she's discussed like built environment stuff. So I think that would be a third possible one.
Maybe Jake, you're the closest with her. Maybe, can you tap the folks here around the table who maybe would want to sit in, not necessarily be on that modeling committee, but might want to sit in for some of this BMP?
Sure. I think past the like modeling meetings with the working group that Kyoko runs, I think any of these are open to anybody.
Okay.
I think that seems relevant or just as interested in
And
the
to
conversation.
clarify, would the list also include things they learned from other lake 90s that would be applicable to us? Will that be in there as well?
Yes, I would assume so if they're applicable. I mean, some of that comes down to, you know, what people think makes the most sense in terms of the modeling, like. Uh, I haven't said this, but I plan on leaning heavily on Kyoko's opinions when it comes to sort of stoichiometry and relationships to nitrogen and phosphorus and things that we might look at. Just because we're not maybe strictly a phosphorus driven system here.
Okay.
But,
well,
yeah.
that sounds like a plan. And you, so you'll pick from either team members or members. If it's applicable, I mean, Paul, I mean, you know, people are willing to be involved, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and there's basically no limitation. So if you're interested, let me know. You know, the focus would be on, of course, the folks who know the most, whether that be soil, water, or whatnot, but.
So Paul, you want to be involved, Bill, you want to be involved, anyone else? Lauren, you probably want to be involved. Victoria, you know, goes already on that table. Okay, and you'll already be at the table, Crystal. By the way, very impressive. picture.
Yeah.
Oh my God, not that.
You're famous.
I must say, this is a good fashion look. I must say, I like it.
Ever since that thing's come up, I've never been.
It's a good thing for us. People are reading the paper.
Cover boy.
It's a good
Kudos
thing.
to Paul.
That's right. Kudos to Paul. That's right.
Yeah,
And one thing that I wanted to ask everyone is that if you are especially like passionate about clog pond or retention pond or sediment trap or something like that, please write up the story behind it, like what happened historically in the system, because there's no way that Wendy is going to find those things, you know, when Highway 80 crumbled where and how long it took to repair. Those information are not available to her, and she cannot meaningfully incorporate those things unless she has good information.
So tell the story.
All right.
And get it to Jake.
I'm just gonna say 1,000% what she said. So
Okay.
yes, you can send it to both of us maybe,
Okay.
but definitely me and
So Paul,
Yes.
we should really, and I think you're passionate about this, we should really tell the story of baby somewhere in this thing. So that we've got a story that we can incorporate a concern. We could take that to the state and say, look, you gotta work with us to make sure this is a safe road. I gotta get that in there. Clark Pond, Bill knows the story intimately there. So any.
It's not just 80, I mean, the most visible spot is the very north end of the lake. That is the most visible spot. That used to be a sand beach, hard sand beach.
Totally agree. Okay.
Been a long time since I've seen anybody playing on the beach. On the golf course.
They called it Sandy Beach.
Hmm?
They called it, but the locals called it Sandy Beach.
Yeah.
As opposed to Rocky Beach.
So is the Willow Brook report an off-the-shelf kind of document that could be given to Wendy?
I think she already has
the
that.
flood mitigation report, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, and the focus on the silt, I mean, there was some talk of the debris and the accumulation of debris in the man-made channel.
Right.
Yeah.
But Christos is gonna write it up for the
Okay.
sediment plan.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that was
What, the willow?
Yeah.
the Willowbrook Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, the
report.
issues
That's
around Willow.
contributes to the narrative.
Yes, but I again, I think even if it's like, hey, here's an important part of the report, like we're sending her so much stuff. I wouldn't count on like having a good narrative just from the fact that she has all the reports and stuff. I think it's kind of what Kyoko is talking about. Like if we're like, we know
Yeah.
this happened and then this happened and this used to look like this. And now it looks like this, or this part of the report lays out everything that we think is serious about this.
The engineering report is more like a snapshot. And what's important is it something that was recurring, you know, the locals tried to do, you know, different things and it didn't work, you know, those kind of history is important when we ask for grants, like we tried those things, but it's not working, we need your help.
Right.
And we are having East Lake from failures too. I mean, there was.
Yeah, so that we gotta get that in there, and it's not gonna get in there because we mentioned it at this meeting, so whatever you write up, just get it to Jake and make sure that we get it in somewhere in that report. Just remember, from that document, that's where we apply for grants, so if it isn't in there, it's gonna be challenging. Okay, McNeely response, just a couple of things here, I think the village is doing a response Is that correct? I
Yes,
think. What I would recommend here is that when something comes in that has a lot to do with the watershed, it might be helpful to have a village response with the WSC together. As
Yeah.
opposed to separate from, if it's possible.
right, and I think we could do that. So just to get a little granular, Cindy Falk took a stab at a draft response. She asked me to look at it, which I did. I found implicated in the landowner's request, our sewage easement, sewer, which we own. However well documented it is, I'm not sure, but we do own that easement that for someone else to bring in riprapping and other things around our sewer line is problematic because under the easement is our property. So Cindy's drafted a letter that revised it to point out the need for regulatory compliance. But your point is, that I think when a letter like that comes in, it should be referred to the Watershed Supervisory Committee for a recommended response, if this group wants to take on that responsibility. So I quite agree with that. Same when we have a water and sewer board issue, that gets referred
Yeah.
before the board itself acts on it. And I think it just is a good check on all of us.
I would agree.
Okay.
Uncomfortable.
I should-
Yeah.
Do you want to pass that on, or I'll mention to Cindy? I don't know where the letter is right now. I don't know if it's already gone, but we can.
I don't know, but I'll check it out tomorrow and I agree with you.
And certainly going forward,
Yeah.
this should be the
Okay.
protocol.
And I'll carry it on the agenda as we need to get the letter and make sure that. Okay, same with the styrofoam letter response from the village, we expect a response since we wrote on it, so we'll wait for that. Styrofoam letter to the homeowners. I'm pausing because do we have one yet?
I mean, it's done and ready to go. I think it's just a matter of who's gonna send it. We can put it in our first newsletter.
So we asked OLA if they'd send it out. Jim said, they've sent other things out, but they'll send it. Jim, are you okay sending it with your newsletter? Jim, are you there?
He's about to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to unmute. Yeah, absolutely, but I think the letter. I think we left it that OCCA was gonna write the letter, we were gonna support it, distribute it.
Yes, so I'll have it.
Yes, and we will either do a special email or the newsletter, but we will get that out to 350 people.
Okay, so boom, Victoria will send it to you. We'll get that out.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I just mention that, I talked to Henry Miller about it, and he said he could put that in their law.
Okay, will you send it to Bill?
Yes, absolutely.
In
No, well, I mean, he could, that you can't have styrofoam, but that's uncovered.
In the law, you said, that's,
In-
I'm
yeah.
just trying to figure out.
Sorry.
It's they're Springfield's home rule.
Yeah.
They can,
Yeah, that's great.
okay, wonderful. Public meeting, I sent an email with a write-up. Jake has already reviewed it, Victoria's reviewed it. If okay, we'll send it out to that public meeting list. Everyone okay with it? Okay, I'm gonna move that we send it to the public group.
Second,
All in favor?
all right,
Opposed? And the Otsego 2000. We have 115 people signed up for that, which is great. Victoria and I met yesterday, our little tiny communications meeting. And we're recommending to WSC that we send out that same thing as the first communication to the Otsego 2000 email listserv with the styrofoam letter attached. So we're recommending that to WSC. I'll move it.
I also, we can attach the letter about bubblers too, if we think that would be helpful to put in there.
Why not? All right, I'm moving. Who wants to second?
I'll second.
Remember to second, Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, debrief the WAC meeting. That was really, really good. Isn't it good?
Yeah.
Great.
It's productive.
Yeah. Very much so.
It was
Yeah,
a
minute.
couple, yeah,
Go ahead, please.
I think he was.
Oh, I was, let me present a contrarian view.
Please do.
I think we missed an opportunity because we didn't make it explicitly clear. We made a lot of suggestions, but we did not make it explicitly clear that we wanted the leaders, the principals, to get together and decide on a couple of priorities that they were going to work on. I would like to suggest for the next time we host such a meeting, that we make it explicit in the agenda what we want them to vote thumbs up and thumbs down. Don't think that's unreasonable for us. We're spending our time here. I don't want to waste my time on something that they're never going to act on. I don't think anybody else does either.
No, I think that's fine. I was very pleased that Jeff Weber brought up the idea of the towns working together with the village. And so Springfield, no. Middlefield is intending to take the lead on that. I think that's a great idea. I did originally have it on the agenda, but because we had the 3 chapters we had to do, I was worried that we wouldn't get the time to do that, but I will make sure the next one we do that. That's a reasonable thing. Thank you, Paul. I was especially happy about what the consultant said at the end of the meeting, which I forced them to put in the minutes, which is, quote, which I didn't bring with me. About us being unusually talented, well, I'm not sure about the county, correctly. Unusually.
Unusual.
Unusual group of people who are working on this, and that's a credit to everyone, at the table here who are, working on this every day, living it and diving in it, so we appreciate it. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the $50 fee. I did write a letter to all of you letting you know that there was a discussion of this at the village board, and there is an intent to develop that further. I think there are some details that need to be worked around this, but this was the idea that we pushed forward from the Lake George meeting, a fee of $50 everyone every year. So I did want to get it to you in case someone listened to that village board meeting and came to you as the rep from the town and said, oh, by the way, this was talked about. So any questions there or concerns?
Do we know how they actually, who
Who's
checks get?
$50
Yeah, exactly. Who
How far
they
back?
write the checks to? Who, how did
No, that's
they
not,
organize that?
no, we don't know that. We,
Well-
this is all gotta be worked out.
No, I think for this first tranche, we're going to use, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to use the list that we have of property owners with individual wastewater treatment systems. And they will be the addressees of the first round of letters. How we expect our law, which I was reminded of at our village meeting, doesn't sweep up all property owners. It only sweeps up property owners who have wastewater, individual wastewater treatment facilities on them. So,
And I don't know this, but I kind of recall that it's only those properties that actually touch the lake, not where we have them all one right behind the other on those 1/10 of an acre parcels.
I think not, I think our inventory includes all within the 500 foot.
Okay,
zone.
that's,
Or at least it's, and we can confirm that, but that's my understanding.
yeah, I'd like that because my involvement was at the very beginning of the septic system thing, and as I recall, at the beginning, it was just properties that had physical contact with the water. It might have changed sometime since then, and that would be great. 500 feet makes absolute sense.
Right, well, that's what the
The
law
law
says,
says.
and then we have, the rest of the law speaks to the tributaries. And
Yes.
within 100 feet of the tributary, so we have not
Done that.
identified property owners, we haven't done inspections, we don't have a database for that, but that's something that I think is gonna be a second phase, or at some point, we're gonna get after, but. We were talking about what does the law tell us to do and what are we actually getting done? Well, it's a bit of a triage situation in that we're getting done the most proximate
Mhm.
property, the property is most proximate to the lake. and then we'll go back up the watershed. The watershed is our responsibility, but. And then the question is, so we had in the first three chapters, I can't remember what page it was, but we had a table of tributary streams that are tributaries. I don't know if we're going to expand that list or not, but then the question is, take those tributaries and how far up each tributary do you go? And what about tributaries to the tributaries and where does it end? So that's a massive data gathering, GIS, public record enterprise. But what we're going to start with, and on what the mayor said, we have the capability to do, we can send out invoices to everybody who's on our individual septic system, wastewater treatment system that will property within 500 feet of the lake. Our inventories are at 370 or 350 or.
Yeah, it's about 360. So, just to follow up on that, so my immediate tasks, when talking to the mayor, so. Yes, my understanding is that the invoices, as they've existed like in prior years, when this was initially set up. And by prior years, I just mean the most recent years where Chris did a few of these, a handful of these. These were all had to be produced by hand by the village staff. It's like not a preform document. There was no mail merge set up for it or anything. So I need to work with them to try to get that set up better, because I think they have some trepidation just in terms of the man hours that are required of the village financial staff. I'm going to be writing up a cover letter that would go with it. It would be heading out to the homeowners. And yes, I think in my mind, there's short-term plan, long-term plan. And Bertine and I talked about this a bit before the meeting. Short-term plan is to get started with inspections, because we're probably at about a 70% to 80% of the existing homes that we have in the current database that are beyond certification. And those are most adjacent to the lake properties. So those are the first initial first focus. So I would be starting with that. This will give us a chance to try out the payment system and make sure that this all goes well. My question to you, Joe, would be that when I read through the law, and to me, there's kind of two different laws. There's what's in the village law, and then there's like the 1980s law that kind of underlies it. And I feel like you could read those to mean essentially anything. My question is, as a lawyer, is that still the case? Because I read through one version of it and it essentially would encompass everything, right? And then the other law refers back to the earlier report from the 80s. And that seems to rely on like an index of, maybe I forget exactly what it's called, the DEC sort of index of water bodies. And that would be a more limited list. And then maybe somewhere in between is what you had talked about, which again, that table in the report, that's like 115 miles or something of river that is just in that table. So I think you brought up in your email a lot of good reports that I think we should start thinking about now and talking about now in terms of what list we could come up with in terms of what we're actually including. Because at the outset, you could say literally everything, because the 80s law talks about any standing body of water where the water can reach the Cooperstown drinking water. And that would range from a puddle on your property down to the lake itself.
So let me, if I can, if you don't mind. I think this is a topic we need to discuss at WSC, and I think what I'd like to do, if everyone's okay with it. I talked to Jake just briefly, I haven't even read what you sent to me yet.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to do is for us to sort of take in what the law says and what plan there might be to fulfill that obligation that is.
Excuse me, when you say the law, you're talking about public law 100 or you're talking about the
Both.
village?
Public law 100,
Okay,
both.
so both laws, yes.
Yeah. And then how we think it makes sense to implement, and then Joe and I, as the representatives from the village, might want to have a conversation about what that means in terms of resources and all the rest, but if we can, I'd like to bring it back sort of fully thought out, if that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. If we have a couple of minutes to discuss this, I think it's really important for us to do it. Logistics to me is one of the most important parts of this effort. We cannot take 100 here and 100 there. If we're going to implement this fee as a Lake George model, seems to me we have to have our list, everybody that's on it now, certainly is a reasonable scope for this letter. And then we have to prepare our document and then do a mass mailing or however it's gonna go out. And then we have to have a means of
Right,
collection, we have to have deadlines, and we have to have a means of.
right, so stop there. Do the towns, I mean, are we gonna notify people we're gonna charge them?
Well, this is, let's back up, let's back up the tanks on that one. We did have discussions. According to the mayor, when we did the initial idea of the fee. That was discussed among the leadership, and there were no gainsayers, and probably everybody was affirmative to some extent about going forward with it. Now, you recall, we drafted up a letter that on the basis of what the village had enacted and what the Watershed Supervisory Committee was in support of, this letter would be over the signature of each town supervisor to its people, and we would do the mailing so that they were, each municipality was not only condoning, but endorsing is the best word, is endorsing this decision to its property owners, because obviously there's a political issue here, you know. How are we going about getting our jurisdiction extended to the point where we can, and it will be perceived by some tax property owners not within our jurisdiction. So we have to explain the law, we have to explain the authority, we have to explain the extraterritorial jurisdiction, and we have to explain, be persuasive about the value of doing all of this. So that was what was going into the letter, but those letters never went out. I don't know what I don't know, it's almost as if the effort petered out. I don't know if the town supervisors, each a leadership question, a leadership meeting question, folks, what do you think? We are prepared to assess this fee, but as the Kennedy Lake fellow said, carrots, not sticks. This has got a bit of pepper in the carrot, so I mean, we just gotta manage this, okay, right? And I've always felt a little troubled by the fact that we stopped the effort to get the supervisors to address their own people,
Right, so,
rather than let Michael do it.
so here we are,
Okay,
have everybody here.
this is so closely related to what I asked you to add to the agenda. I'd like to
Okay,
move into that. Because what we have right now is a model based on public law 1100, where the village is coming out and telling everybody to ante up. And that takes care of the septic systems, but it doesn't take care of things that many in the Lakeshore property owner community want taken care of. Before Cuomo was elected governor, there was a big push across New York State to form lake tax districts. And there are a couple of them over in Madison County that I am very familiar with that have done great things with very modest amount of taxation. So this is a different model in that it is the folks who live around the lake who, first of all, have to vote to form a tax district. And then it has to be approved, in our case, by all 4 municipalities. And now, instead of the work maybe that we're doing here being funded by somebody who lives on Beaver Street, it is being funded by just those folks who live within a certain distance of the lake. And that is decided upon in the charter for the lake tax district. It's not an easy thing to accomplish, but it puts the solutions in the hands of the members of that tax district. Doesn't take away any of our public law 1100 thing, but it gives us a valuable ally without the village board, the town supervisors having to go to other folks, like in my town, folks who live on Canandaigua Lake can say, gee, we've got to pay this bill for Otsego Lake because the WSC said so.
Yeah, so I think the Lake District issue is a good one. There are these entities, as you point out. So
I didn't finish about the approval process.
Okay.
It's not simple.
It is.
After those, in our case, 5 approvals, the members themselves, the 4 municipalities, then it goes to the legislature and then finally has to be approved by the governor. So when it was rolling along well, it was usually a 2 or 3 year process. But the folks who are involved with them are pretty enthusiastic about the results, and their taxes are not onerous. They're a couple of $100 a year, and they're able to do things like put catch basins in all around the lake. And every year they look at that money and they say, gee, what can we do for the lake this year?
Yeah.
They go through a budgeting drill.
So let's keep that on the agenda. Let's
Okay.
do some analysis and some investigation. But let's come back to this $50.
Yeah, the journey towards the million starts with the push. So I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you completely. It's a very complicated thing politically. It's gonna be very costly to do, but go, Jake.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bonnie had a
Oh, go ahead,
comment,
please.
so.
And this was following up on Joe's question of where we were. And my recollection is that there was a letter that had been drafted by Carrie that the village had looked at, WSC had looked at it, and each town representative was to go talk with their supervisor about whether or not, I think at the time it was the town supervisor with the support of the board, of their board, would sign it, but that the village didn't put it. That's what the mayor, I think, has said at that time. And then the mayor, we heard, I thought on WSC, that the mayor wanted to go speak with each town herself, each town board. So the letter was set aside, waiting for that to happen. And my time frame is about October of last year, when that letter was ready. And then, I don't know that the mayor went and talked with them, but that's what stopped the letter at that point.
Right,
So,
yeah.
glad that Joe brought it up in terms of what's going to be the plan of action now.
Right, so it's interesting, I didn't know what Carrie had written, I know I had drafted something up, and it was something we were dealing with, but authorship doesn't matter. But the mayor said she did get this sort of handshake understanding about the fee going out and the formality, so the mayor did her part. I guess the real question, the question was not called of the supervisors, will you send the letter out? Do you think that's a good idea, politically or otherwise? So I've always been a little, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, well, I would want to say, I think it slowed down on in part on the amount. And then we heard from Canandaigua, then we heard from Lake George that they just billed everybody $50 a year. That amount was not insurmountable for people, and then they just did that time in that way, when they did the 5-year annual inspections, it was already paid for. And that took the onus off it, but it's still left, and so everybody said, oh yeah, okay, now we're ready to go with it. But we still haven't found out if the supervisors talked with their boards and if there were, and if the letter was ready to go out.
Well, here is a suggestion. Let's take.
Well, I can talk about that as a member of the board of the town of Otsego. And if Ellen talked to Ted, it never filtered down to the board for discussion.
And it would have been Carrie, true.
Carrie talked to me about his proposals and ideas. But that was when he was on the head of the regulatory board and was trying to figure out how section 1100 of the public health law worked. And when he was our rep before Paul. But this letter of charging a fee, at that point it was $150, I believe, it never came to the town board of the town of Otsego.
Okay, and just to, let's plow this ground. I think there was some contention that we didn't have the authority to issue a fee. And I think Carrie was of that view, at least momentarily, if not more than that. So I proposed that the village attorney or the mayor, I drafted up that letter too. I drafted up a letter to the Secretary of State and said, we've got this law, 1100. Pursuant to that law, we've got our local law. Pursuant to that local law, we authorize this fee in the statutory scheme of the state, pursuant to which we're doing all of this. Is this a legitimate fee? And there was a reluctance to approach the Secretary of State because the Secretary of State is likely to say, we don't give advisory opinions, wait until you get a lawsuit and then the courts will sort it out. And I thought that was pretty unfortunate because I think an office of legislative counsel could give some guidance on that topic. So that didn't happen.
Gives opinions.
Pardon me?
The office of the attorney general gives opinions.
Well,
And they give them off the cuff. You don't have, you could, if you sent that letter, that office will give an opinion.
Okay, good to know. That was not the feedback we got from our council. So, and any.
Up to the state, but I got them all the time from the attorney general.
Well, here's a thought. Maybe it would be good for, say, the town of Otsego. If we want to test this, I mean, I don't even know what the politics of each municipality is, but if this isn't an issue, we'll just send out the fee and see what we collect, or see who protests or see who
Yeah,
sues.
I don't think it'll be an issue, mostly because most of the Lakeshore residents don't vote in the local 4 municipalities.
Voting is the least of my concerns.
So.
Lovely.
I just want to say, it strikes me that there should be communication with at least the town supervisors or among the 4 municipalities that the village is going to do it. There should be a notification that that's going to happen. Just so that when any of you go back to your towns, you know that there's going to be a communication about this. That would be my thought about this, that there should be at least that connection made.
Right, so I would say, as to that point, that connection has been made.
Okay,
But it may not be sufficiently of record for any of us, and we may want to have that. It's the next step. It's one thing for Cooperstown to say to the other 3 municipalities, this is what we think we have the authority to do and we intend to do. And then saying, we agree, and we'll let our folks know to expect this, it'll be coming from the village of Cooperstown, pay the bill. That step has not occurred, and that's a political and governmental issue for each municipality. So that we're not bigfooting into it. The whole idea is for the nap of this carpet to be all laying in the same direction, not to be rubbing something the wrong way. So, yes.
Or Joe, may I say that in the fall, I had sent a draft letter, perhaps it was yours, not Harry's, but at the time, Dave Carl said, I would sign this letter, but I would ask to see, it was a draft, I would ask to see the final version. And I would sign it as long as it's substantively similar and that the town of Middlefield does not have responsibility for collecting it. And now I haven't had the conversation with Ron Morgan since January 1st, because if this was in abeyance. I'm happy to have that to say, if Joe provides us with the proposed letter, and the proposed letter says that So it is, it reads as if it's coming from the town. And because it's gonna be signed by the supervisor of each town, which we hope would cement the collaboration of the 4 municipalities, but that the village assumes the authority of collecting, or the responsibility for collecting, so that people's checks will be made out to whoever the letter tells them to. But I don't think that, and certainly couching it in terms of this is, we believe that we have the authority to do this, as you would have discussed, but not have it sound as if it's all coming from Cooperstown.
Right, so there is that draft letter. It was only draft because one wouldn't presume to say exactly what any supervisor wanted to say, but this was the go by. But Jake, refresh my recollection. Am I missing something? Is there a conversation we've had about this in the village that I'm not recollecting and folks need to hear?
No, as I noted, what I had talked to Ellen about was basically a cover letter and then working out everything as far as the invoices. So I guess my question is, listening to the conversation you all are having, we want to either take the letter that we have from you or Carrie or something, circulate that with WSC folks, make sure everybody agrees with the general wording, and then each set
It's
of
not
representatives
unusual for
representatives
the
take it
neighboring
back to the
municipality.
Wait, finish.
and then each set of representatives or representative would then take that back to their board, make sure that they have the approval. And then I guess the question would be whether we would see that, because would that then actually be included with the invoice where we send it actually bill them, or would we be first sending out a letter that would be coming from each of the supervisors saying, hey, we're on board with this, this is what you'll be expecting. And then they would get a WSC letter, cover letter, explaining that this is your invoice, this is the $50, et cetera, et cetera. Is that the?
What you said just then, exactly right. That's how I envisioned it. And this is sort of John the Evangelist, right? I'm making straight the path for this thing. That's what we want the supervisors to do. And it sounds like everybody's on board with it, but they were elected by people. Okay, fair enough.
Just like Bonnie said, the first question I was asked was, are we supposed to pay for the stamps to send this out?
No,
That was one. And how, because most of those, the septic systems outside of the, a lot of them are in the town of Otsego. So that was one. 2, we didn't have the staff for it. 3, are we supposed to collect if people don't pay? Or even if they do? And 3, what are we supposed to do if they refuse to pay? Or they don't let Jake come and do the inspection? Because that's where it broke down a year ago, when we were being told, there's some people that aren't in compliance, and you're gonna have to go after them. And we don't actually have the authority, as far as we can figure out, to do that. We wrote some nastygrams from our lawyer, and that finally broke the.
So Pat, great.
But he told us he couldn't enforce it under the
Right.
current
Yeah.
law.
so here's the thing. No, and no. Absolutely no administrative cost to be borne by any of the municipalities. They'll all be borne by the village of Cooperstown. So that's not in play. The question of enforcement, we'll see. I mean, that's, and you know, there are two things. We don't want to be about bigfooting, tax enforcement. That's really what we want is a clean lake. And we want, we hope this isn't going to lead to stay off of my property. I'm not going to let you look at my system. The state law is very clear that says the owner of a municipal water system can enter the property and inspect the lands of those whose, land use have an impact on the public water supply of that municipality. So the state law, if we didn't arrogate that to ourselves in a village law, that's in the state law.
So we're losing some people. So this is what I would recommend. This is, there needs to be, here's what we're gonna do that goes to WSC and the town supervisor. We're gonna charge $50 per year per household that meets the qualifications. We're gonna send it out. You don't have to do it. We're gonna pay for it. The letter will come from the village to the homeowners. It's gonna come from WSC. WSC has to approve that. And then everyone knows, the town supervisors know, they can bring it to their board. I hope they do, but that's up to them. Everyone knows what's gonna happen and we tell the public, this is what we're gonna do, and then we go forward. But I think there has to be a step-by-step that goes from the. Perhaps the municipalities as a foursome meet on Zoom or wherever. This is laid out and then we go forward.
It's
It has to be a coordinated,
an official notification, not a phone, not a even face to face, an official letter. When neighboring municipalities do things along their border, they're required to inform the other municipality. That's what we're talking about.
So let me ask then, following what King said, what is the role of the Watershed Supervisory Committee municipal representatives? So we're just discussing this now, and I think one thing I'm thinking of is that as a result of a meeting like this, the watershed board members from each municipality report to their supervisor in a town meeting and say, this is the plan, and this is, as board members of the supervisory committee, we recommend this course of action.
That's fine, and probably has been done in every case, but that still doesn't take the place of an official notification, so that when some irate landowner climbs up the hill in Fly Creek, they can say, yeah, we were informed, take it up with the village, this is our letter telling us what's going on.
So with that, just let me make this last point. So would your concern be met if we complete the letters that are for the signature of each supervisor and the town boards vote to have their supervisor?
I don't even think that's necessary. I just think you need to have the village officially notify each supervisor of the fact that this is going to happen under the authority of Public Law 1100. It's a
Yes, okay,
notification.
we-
It's not asking for compliance or agreement.
and I think to Joe's point, and that step by step, what we're gonna do can be taken by each of you back to your boards. Okay, this is what's gonna happen, but you've gotta have it in front of you. So you can tell folks. So there are two things happen. The reps from WSC do their job to report back. And there's a notification from the village as well. I mean, that would be a robust communication process, I think,
Almost robust.
almost.
The last component of it would be, because of the irate landowner issue, that the towns themselves communicate at our expense, at the village's expense. We'll pay for the mailing of the letter that's gonna go out over the signature of your supervisor, telling your property owners that this is something in which we are well pleased and is good.
I don't think that's necessary. Public Law 1100, you can talk to the property owners yourself.
The heavy fist or the velvet glove?
Right.
I mean.
And we
this-
have to
this is-
show solidarity. It can't just be the village doing this. We have to show that each town is involved, each town is comfortable. The letter goes out, the village is paying for whatever the expenses are and the collection and the worry about who doesn't pay. But that this is the process and we're doing it as a team. That's, for me, this would be the second, besides supporting Springfield, this would be our second effort to really coordinate how we're gonna do something as we were meant to do.
And I think, while this is Cooperstown's municipal water system, and that's what the law is all written about. This authority, and it's hard for others to swallow maybe, but this authority is relatively unique. Not every watershed has this system. And so while Cooperstown has the conch, it's bringing everybody along with this authority. That's why our watershed plan, our 90 plan is going to look different from other plans, because we're bringing a legal authority with us that other jurisdictions may not have. They may have other, legal devices, but so we're trying to use this to best effect. It's not just about getting our
Right.
piece.
So I'll put it in writing. You'll take it back.
Okay.
The next steps, yes. Or
I
you and
want
can.
to coordinate, Jake, you see.
Sure.
This
Yep.
is our committee, but Jake is our guy, so.
I'm your guy.
If you need us, we're the village reps, so we'll come with, I mean, whatever. you want us to do.
We'll do whatever you want.
Write that down, yeah.
That's right. So I
Okay,
know.
thanks for the good conversation and good recommendations, good outcome. Let's go from there. I think doing this as a team is always far better than not. And the more we can model that for the municipality, I think it's important.
So Bertine, can I just summarize to make sure I fully understand what we're doing? So I'll work with you and we'll take either what you've written up or what Carrie's written up. We'll make sure we have sort of the best version of the draft that would be going out for approval. I don't know if should I be sending that out to you all, just so you can have eyes on it and make sure that you.
First step
Yep.
is that there's a conversation with the municipality leaders about this happening. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna send a letter. We're gonna take care of X, Y, and Z.
Mhm. We probably want them to have that on hand, right? Like you were saying.
Right, but that's all in that same communication, I think.
Right, we're gonna,
Okay.
so your thought is we're gonna prepare a communication that announces the fee, recommends that it be announced to the respective municipalities at the village of Cooperstown's expense.
Mhm.
And that will be following up with, the invoices, for the inventory of individual wastewater system property owners we have right now. Something like that.
No,
And-
what I hear is there will be a conversation with the four municipality leaders about the fact that the fee is now $50. They don't, not.
Right. Yes,
That it's going to be, a letter will go out from the municipality leaders. Cooperstown or the village will administer it, collect it, blah, 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 worry about who doesn't pay. Here's what the letter will say. That the people here who represent their towns will also take that communication, once it's all written up in a nice package back. And then it will go out once everyone is on board with it. How does that sound to the towns? Pat, anybody?
I'll let you know when I talk to the supervisor.
Okay.
I'm not sure there's gonna be any enthusiasm for this.
okay,
$50 inspection
$50 per year
Per year.
per person.
per property that has a septic system on it.
Correct.
I don't,
No.
Jake will tell you that some of those properties might have more than one septic system on them.
But it's just per property per year, yeah, as far as we know now. Put it out.
Routine,
Yes,
refining the process is that the draft letter will be shared with WSC. And then I would think that the town representatives would have the opportunity to send it to the supervisor ahead of the meeting that WSC coordinates among the three supervisors and the village.
no, we're not, the WSC is not coordinating the meeting, to me. I mean, who is that? That's Jay.
I thought
well,
that's
here-
what it said, so that's why I was clarifying, it seemed as that
yeah,
I thought the letter was being reviewed by WSC.
It should be,
He
yes.
said, okay, then the town reps would take it to their supervisor, because I think they're gonna wanna see it before they are asked to sign it and send it out. And my understanding was that you wanted, unity, coordination among the four municipalities, so that that I thought WSC was going to allow them to zoom together and say, okay, do we have any response?
I mean, I guess I would
And then it
expect,
would go out.
I would expect the village who made the determination. They're gonna do $50 per year at their village board meeting. Connect with the town supervisor and explain what's happening. Then the representatives from this committee, as soon as the letter's written, we can do it online, it doesn't have to be a whole month. Also go back to their towns and say, this is what the process is, so that would be my way of doing this.
I think we're getting awfully close. This is an exercise in comedy, and it's an exercise in not EDY, comedy. So we're gonna, it's the newspaper idea of tell them what you're gonna tell them, and then tell them what you told her. So we are trying to put together to tell them what we're gonna tell them. And then different vectors. One, the Watershed Supervisory Committee can send out this information as this is what we propose, or that's not deemed appropriate, then the village will do the outreach. But we don't wanna, we don't want to just send out a manifesto that this is happening. We're trying to iterate with this. And as I felt that we had this process underway and then it stopped. It got partway here. So, and I'm very attentive to your remark, because if people aren't gonna like this, that means each municipality leadership has to prepare for that and decide, okay, but I'm gonna tell that person that this is more important than the common good, so we're gonna go forward with it. But I don't want them to get knocked off their saddle right away by one protest, so that's why we have to have this more deliberate discussion, and that's how I would perceive it anyway.
I also want to point out that you guys keep saying the supervisor, the supervisor, the supervisor, at least in our town, the way the authority is worked out is that this is the kind of thing that there will be a vote of the town board on.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
it wouldn't be just the supervisor deciding it.
Totally.
Right.
We'd expect the supervisor to bring it to the board, I guess.
Yeah, but, so don't get past that, because that means,
Yeah.
depending on when it comes, a wait until the actual meeting occurs, which is generally once a month.
Yeah, I understood and fully intended as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, with that completely unclear process, we're getting there, we're getting there.
So again, though, if I could just summarize, and as long as nobody
Yes.
has any major issues, I'll work with Joe and I'll talk to Ellen about us reaching out to the supervisors. And the idea would be that there be some sort of contact, maybe with Ellen, if she's already had conversations with these people saying, hey, this is the version that we're thinking of, and we're planning to move forward with the fee. We come up with a letter. Maybe the letter also, while being very friendly and seeking approval, does at least, certainly lays out our legislative authority of why we're stating this. So that'll bring some little bit of heft maybe to our request.
Right.
And we'll make sure that once the stuff I send out, I will seek approval. So if people can look over whatever we have drafted up, so we have WST approval, since you also will be taking it to your boards to discuss. And then the plan would be that the supervisor and the town boards, the village board, would then take this material we've sent and then hopefully vote on whether they agree. And the plan would be that we were proposing, again, that we'd be sending out that letter on their letterhead.
And we might even want to draft a intergovernmental memorandum of understanding of how this program is going to be implemented with us paying for the stamps and so on and so forth.
As long as you're willing to offer legal advice on that pursuit.
Okay, the scientific advisory report was sent out. Any questions for Kyoko? I am gonna talk to her next meeting about her quote. Nitrogen load in the Otsego Lake watershed has not been reduced as successfully as phosphorus by best management practices. She is paying attention to how this program may help in the Long Island communities and identify sources that might be helpful here. So I want to carry that on, and I think that's something we need to pay attention to. Okay, what is there anything else that didn't get discussed? The committees, I think, are up to speed. There's nothing new to report about the committees. As far as I know, all the municipal assessments were done and submitted. Thank you to the towns for doing that work in the village. So I think we're on track with the 9E.
Yes, if that was a question.
Anything else that we needed to talk about? Anything that didn't get said? That should be said.
Bonnie.
Yeah.
Back when you were listing what should be included in the 90 plan, you started with Little Brook and Clark Pond and the water pipe.
Yep.
You didn't talk about best boat washing and signage. And I didn't do it, I think that should be added to the list.
Yeah, great point.
Absolutely.
Vote Washington, vote rules.
Right, and somehow the publication of them, the notices about them at various spots, maybe even including the, some of the hotels.
Right, okay.
So routine, whether that be now or that be in an upcoming meeting, should we have the same sort of approval process you all did for the salt shed? Does that need to also be done for internship application and
Yeah.
Bonnie's idea with the
And
signs?
anything that's gonna be submitted to Lakeland needs to come.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think we're gonna do that.
so maybe we'll add that to the agenda for next time to make
Yeah.
sure that we've
I
covered that.
mean, yeah, because we're coming up on April here, so we'll put it on the next agenda.
Yeah, and it's gonna have to be Matt in my stead,
Matt and,
in my stead, because I'll be out of town. But we'll have that.
okay, I think that's everything. Thank you for coming here. Appreciate being here.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for everyone online. I think we're all set. I think we're done. Work is done here.
For now.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, online.
Thank you.
Yep,
Share, thank you.
no problem at all. Have a great week or day or whatever. Enjoy the sunshine, which is maybe all up and down the East Coast right now.
Yeah, that's all garbage.
I think that is the case, but to be perfectly honest, it's a small fraction of the inspection cost. So I think the idea is that it's levied against septic
Can
inspection.
you turn off your,